The war in Israel is causing security concerns here in Southern California this morning.
And the death toll continues to rise as Israel prepares for a possible invasion of Gaza. We have live team coverage of the ongoing war. Ian Lee joins us live from Tel Aviv. Our Chris Holmstrom has the latest from the region, but we begin with Tina Patel, who's at LAUSD headquarters in the Westlake district.
Well, good morning. You know, Hamas has called for today to be a worldwide day of jihad. Many people don't know what that means. Many parents wondering if they should send their kids to school today. Well, several school districts sent out messages yesterday saying that school would be in session, including LAUSD. Let me read you part of the statement that they put out. They say, quote, "Our schools are safe. We want to assure you that we are closely monitoring the situation and continuing to work with our civic and law enforcement partners." Now, both the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department say they are in constant contact with federal and state authorities, and right now they say there is no information about specific or credible threats locally. Still, many law enforcement agencies say they will be conducting extra patrols today. A local Jewish high school that asked us not to disclose where they are located already had armed security provided by a nonprofit group. The head of that organization is advising students today to walk to school and to services in groups and to go straight home after school.
There is an elevated risk, and we have to accept that, and we have to understand that as a result of that risk, it's incumbent on us to be a little bit more aware of our own security.
And SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents actors here in Hollywood, they have decided to cancel all picket lines both in Los Angeles and in New York today. They said it had to do with safety concerns, but they did not specify exactly what those concerns are. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, Tina, thank you. And Israel has ordered an evacuation of part of Gaza as its airstrikes against Hamas rain down again today.
The evacuation, a possible sign of the next stage of the war, a ground invasion. Residents in the northern half of Gaza were given 24 hours yesterday to evacuate their homes and move to the south. That time now down to about 8 hours, and it impacts 1.1 million people. That is the equivalent of the populations of Long Beach, Anaheim, and the city of Riverside combined. But the UN says the evacuation is, quote, impossible.
And we continue our team coverage with our Chris Holmstrom now. Chris.
Yeah, so the death toll on both sides continues to climb. Right now, it is at more than 2,800 people. We're also talking about water, food, and electricity that is running short. And it's images like this that you're seeing all across this area. And Israel says it won't allow new deliveries into the Gaza Strip until Hamas releases more than 100 hostages that were taken during last week's horrific terror attack. As Israel prepares for a potential ground invasion of Gaza, it's now warning the United Nations that more than 1 million people from the north must move south in the next day. But the UN says that's impossible without devastating humanitarian consequences. The situation for residents in Gaza, nearly half of them children, is already dire, with hospitals overwhelmed. Israel's aerial bombardment on suspected Hamas targets continues. Now, 1 week after the terror group launched a brutal surprise attack on multiple communities, killing men, women, and children.
Absolute pure hell that broke loose and destroyed everything.
As the violence escalates, the U.S. State Department says it is arranging evacuation flights to get Americans out of Israel. The agency says at least 20,000 U.S. citizens have reached out since the Hamas attacks. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is meeting with leaders in Israel 1 day after Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit.
We stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel.
Today, Blinken discussed the conflict with Jordan's King Abdullah II and Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. And take a look at this. In a continued show of solidarity, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is meeting with leaders in Israel today. He spoke today in Tel Aviv, saying America's support for Israel is, quote, ironclad.
There is never any justification for terrorism, and that's especially true after this rampage by Hamas. And anyone who wants lasting peace and security for this region must condemn and isolate Hamas.
Yeah, and again, at least 2,800 people have been killed since these attacks started. Marcin Rudabé, I'll send it back to you, too.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Ahead at 6:30, we will speak with Ian Lee, who's live on the ground in Tel Aviv. So stay with KCAL News and KCALnews.com for the latest developments in the war in Israel and reaction and local ties here in Southern California. We're also streaming 24/7 on CBS News Los Angeles.
CBS News Los Angeles, your local news, streaming wherever, whenever.